Good morning. Welcome to the Razor Sharp Report on Bold Like a Leopard. And I am going to talk to you today about, first of all, the events in Brazil. Also, what's going on with this Kanye West, Kyrie Irving saga. Now, I've recorded previous videos, and each time I haven't been able to upload because of my packed schedule. So I'm just getting around to commenting on them now, only because I haven't been able to upload. So hopefully in the near future, I'll be trying to do some tech upgrades, so to speak, that will let me do more of these videos more often. But for now, I'd still appreciate if you follow me. Go down to the description below, and you can find me on all of the different alternative social media and video hosting sites, Rumble, Odyssey, and BitChute. And let's get to the video. So the other topics, okay, so it's not only going to be the Kanye and Brazil issues. There was an Israeli legislative election. I'll comment briefly on that. And then there is the upcoming midterms, and then there's the state of our economy and the Federal Reserve. So I think I'll go in the order of Kanye, economy, and then Brazil/Israel, and then the midterm elections. So Kanye West and Kyrie Irving and some other figures, I think Stephen A. Smith, they've come under fire in the past few weeks because first and foremost, Kanye West made some disparaging anti-Semitic remarks. Of course, it was in the wake of his White Lives Matter t-shirt with Candace Owens. Now, a lot of people have been on this kick where they've been condemning Kanye this entire time. They just don't like him anymore. They don't like Kanye West because they think his opinions are terrible, therefore he's a terrible person, and that he should be canceled, and that, God forbid, if he ever works in this town again. And they're like, well, make sure we'll never work in this town again. I'm not of that attitude. Of course, the guy is rich as all get out, and it's not really my place to mourn him losing his career. And the companies that he had partnerships with, I think they have a right to not do business with him if they don't want to, right? If Adidas wants to drop him from their partnership over their fashion brand because they think they might lose business and his brand might not sell because people aren't going to be buying Kanye's anymore, if that's what they think, it's their right. But I don't really think that's the productive way to go about this. In fact, I think that Kanye West is a complicated character, and certainly when you hear him speak, it's pretty clear that this is a guy who has great creative juices, but he might not be the most logical person day to day. So I wouldn't be taking any opinion advice from him about anything, even on things that I agree on. I don't have any problem with anything he's been doing with Candace Owens and with the White Lives Matter issue, and certainly the remarks that he made about Jewish people and about how he's going to go DEFCON 3 on them. I don't like what he said, but a lot of these things are empty threats, right? How is he going to go DEFCON 3 on anyone? He's a person known to be blustery and to speak off the cuff and to say things that are really, nobody can really take him seriously. The guy's considered one of the more mercurial people within the realm of hip-hop. I compare him maybe to, in basketball, there was a guy, Ron Artest, who was a player for many years, who they were saying, well, this guy's, so even people within the league were like, this guy's crazy, he's a thug and whatever. And then it just turned out that he was just plain crazy. And then towards the end of his career, he mostly mellowed out, except for that one incident I remember where he elbowed a guy in the face and almost broke him. I think it was James Harden. So, look, Most of the time, these people don't cause anyone else any harm. Obviously, there are risks to, freedom of speech should always be limited to freedom of speech. We should always tell people, use your words, don't use your fists if we want a civil society. And there's an ambulance going by, but we should always encourage people to exercise their freedom of speech in lieu of actually, committing acts of violence. Now, the problem, and I'm not going to leave this out, is that people like Kanye West or people like Kyrie Irving's had a similar episode recently where he shared a video that quoted Adolf Hitler, and I'll do a brief breakdown of that. But there is an issue where you do have anti-Jewish sentiments and anti-white sentiments. Let me not leave that out. But you do have hate crimes that have been committed by black perpetrators against non-black victims, whether it's Asians, whether it is Jewish people in Brooklyn, and sometimes it's also white people, like happened in Waukesha. These shouldn't be ignored, and we shouldn't just let it slide, because a lot of these perpetrators also happen to have a screw loose and maybe have delusional beliefs and also have criminal records and stuff like that. I think that if you look at the pattern of many of these crimes that have happened, for example, there was a Jersey City attack. Basically it was a terrorist attack by two members they were black members of some sort of religious sect that I don't think that they were the Nation of Islam, but I do think that they had some sort of connection to one of these black separatist sects. Their motivation came from the same place as people like Kanye West and Kyrie Irving, or the people that they were at least citing. And I'm not going to blame Kanye West or Kyrie Irving for the crimes that those people committed, but I just want to put it out there that this does turn into violence sometimes. And I think 4 people died in that attack specifically, and there were also other attacks. There was one in Muncie, New York, and so this isn't something that's just limited to a freedom of speech issue, because unfortunately it can lead to bloodshed and loss of life. So I certainly don't think that we should just allow freedom of speech to cloud the dangers that can happen when people are incited to commit acts of violence. But that incitement is not always easy to draw as a parallel to the crime itself. That's one of the real problems with accepting, as I do, that freedom of speech has to be the paramount value of American society, while also recognizing that people can be motivated in different ways. How do you break down, for example, the motivation of Mark David Chapman, the guy who murdered John Lennon? So who's to blame for that, right? Everybody agrees that was crazy. How do you blame somebody like John Hinckley, who tried to kill President Reagan because he was obsessed with Jodie Foster? Is it Jodie Foster's fault? No sane person would say that. There's lots of different reasons that people decide to commit a crime, and it's pointless to actually, punish somebody else unless they actively encourage that person to commit the crime. So I am a person, I believe in freedom of speech. I believe also that we have to keep dialogue open as much as possible, not shut the door for people who want to be part of the public conversation to be in it. And if you don't like it, you can ignore it. That's been my approach many of these years. I've dealt with anti-Semitic remarks a lot of my career because I'm Jewish. So, not in my professional career, but especially in college. So this is something where I don't feel like we should be censoring anyone. But another point is that Kanye West has sort of apologized, I think like a week ago, and then Kyrie Irving apparently yesterday also. Geez, it's like fire day over here. Now there's a fire engine right next to me. Anyway, so Kyrie Irving has also apparently apologized, and he's committed to donating $500,000 to causes that are meant to combat hate speech, I believe. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, the quote that he actually, it wasn't his movie, but the quote that was in the movie that was attributed to Adolf Hitler, there's no way that can be considered truthful. Why? Because he had some sort of pun in there where he said that the black people are the true jewels and that they've been stolen, and by that he meant that the blacks are the true Jews. Well, Adolf Hitler wouldn't have said that because the word Jew is not in German. It's Jude. He didn't speak English, so why would he use that pun? Who actually believes this stuff? People who are just gullible morons. So I'm sorry for Kyrie Irving being gullible. I'm a huge fan of his basketball career, but you just have to think like one step ahead of the material that you're consuming, and keep your head on a swivel. Next topic. So Brazil elections and Israel elections. Terrible result in Brazil. I can't emphasize it enough. I feel for the people in the country. Now, even though it was a close election and people thought it would be a blowout and that Lula, the left-wing corrupt former president, has won, and the current president, Bolsonaro, is going to be leaving office, and he's accepted that he's going to be leaving office, even though he hasn't accepted that he lost the election. I will say that for people who believe in a free society and in first of all, in a free society and also in a prosperous one, this is a major loss. Brazil has always been, in my opinion, a beacon of the potential of humankind. It's always been a country that has potential, but it never seems to live up to that potential. And why doesn't it do that? Because of the people who elect politicians like Lula. Brazil has tremendous natural resources and also big industry and big agriculture and all of that. And they have the rainforest, let's not forget. They've always been a country that seems to have everything it takes to be a major prosperous world power. And sometimes it looks like they might actually do that, but it hasn't happened. Why is that? Because you put people in power that plunder the resources and the treasury. And they haven't always been leftists like Lula, but he would definitely be one of them. His cronies and his protege, who became the president after him, Dilma Rousseff, they plundered the oil company that is the biggest oil company in Brazil, Petrobras. In fact, I think that they're the oil conglomerate that controls their oil industry. So they plundered it while they were in power. They basically used it as a cash register for their own extravagant spending, for personal stuff. So that's the type of person that succeeds, because leftists don't have this capacity to filter out their own garbage. When somebody is a corrupt and evil person, but they put on some smock with a red star on it, and they say, I'm here to defend the rights of the people and combat inequality and keep the big landowners out and break up big industry and break up the banks. But they do all the same crap that those other people do. They're not helping the people. They're using the people in order to enrich themselves. These are a lot of the same complaints that were lodged against Donald Trump, that he's going to use the office to enrich himself. Well, people like Lula did that, and Donald Trump didn't actually do it, right? So that's one of the the areas where it's admission by projection, as Viva Fry likes to say, if you watch his channel. So confession by projection, I think he says it. So that's what I have to say about Brazil. There were some roadblocks for a few days, and I understand the sentiment entirely. I don't think it's going to work, and it looks like it hasn't, because the police have cleared the roadblocks. But I don't know what the way out of it. For the next few years, Brazil is going to have somewhat of a divided government because apparently while Bolsonaro has lost the presidency, his party is much, much stronger in their Chamber of Deputies and in their Senate than they were before. And other parties that are also on the political right in Brazil have grown. So it's going to be interesting what happens with Lula. It could be that the guy fizzles out pretty quickly because his agenda just doesn't have anywhere to go. The next topic, Israel elections, not going to go too far in depth into that. A big right-wing victory over there, and Benjamin Netanyahu is all but a lock to be prime minister. Now, the final results haven't been released yet, to my knowledge. I think that it takes a couple days just because I think they count the soldier votes last or something, and then I think they also even have overseas ballots. It doesn't take, don't get me wrong, it's not the same as what happened here where we had the election go on for over a week after it happened in 2020, which is not normal and didn't happen in any other country in the world, right? Let nobody be fooled. You're not supposed to have an election week in the United States. I think in India they do it because a lot of places are just remote and the roads don't get there. So I think the U.S. has regressed significantly in its election integrity, and we have to get back to max power. But to be clear here, Benjamin Netanyahu will probably be the next prime minister, or there's going to be another deadlock. But it's looking more and more like he is going to be with a stable coalition of right-wing parties, which would include two Orthodox parties, two ultra-Orthodox parties, and I think 3 right-wing ones. And that includes a right-wing party that is led by an ultra-nationalist who, in the past, I don't know if he still does, but he advocates the expulsion of the Arabs from Israel and perhaps even from the West Bank. So it's going to be very, very interesting how the U.S.-Israel relations go from now on, because the U.S. still wants to have Israel committed to the two-state solution and to, the negotiations, the Oslo Accords with the Palestinian Authority. And that could actually be very difficult to do now, more difficult than even before. It hasn't really gone anywhere for the past 20 years, right? Since I was in middle school, it hasn't gone anywhere, because there's nothing to discuss when both sides just hate each other and one side is continuously saying, well, we'll just blow up buses in order to make them soften their stance. Well, that didn't actually work. And now the Palestinian Authority is going to have to deal with possibly the most right-wing government in Israeli history. On the other side of the spectrum in the race, the left-wing bloc in Israel has completely collapsed, the actual left. Now there's a center left called, they're from this party called Yesh Atid, which means there's a future, and there's another party I think that's called the National Unity Party, if that's what they're called in English. That's not actually what their name means in Hebrew. I think in Hebrew they just means like the stately party or something. So this group, so the leftist Israeli group, they include the Labor Party, and they also include what was called the Meretz Party, and they've fallen completely apart. The Labor Party used to be the ruling party in Israel for its first 27 years of existence, and or actually the first 29 years. And the Meretz Party for many years was a partner in those coalitions with the Labor Party. At least it was under previous versions of itself. So, or partners that became the Meretz Party. And then during the 90s, those are the parties that actually got the negotiations with the Palestinians running. They had the Oslo Accords signed, and that was the government that did it under Yitzhak Rabin. And the Meretz Party is now probably going to be out of parliament. They may squeak by and get 3 seats, which would be meaningless. because they would probably have to take those 3 seats away from somebody else. But at the moment, okay, as I was recording this video, they were on 0. They were below the threshold, and that would be a significant loss for the left wing in Israel. It would mean that effectively their support is so low that they can't even get into parliament, and therefore their significance in national debates is 0. They no longer even have a stance. This doesn't really happen in the United States because our elections are done for the parliament, for our Congress, are done by the first past the post system. So usually you'll have areas where there's a strong Democrat group, and then there's a strong Republican group in the next county or something. Well, over there it's all done by proportional representation. And this is what I think is one of the pitfalls of direct democracy as the left likes to see it. Okay, so in Israel you have direct democracy, and the people decided, and they decided the left can go fuck itself. But it's not, what I'm saying isn't that it's bad what happened to that party. The system worked as designed apparently, and the left got kicked out. But what I am saying is that Democrats have to be careful for what they wish for here. If they're so stupid that they think that popular vote is going to get them whatever they want, they have to look at the trends that have gotten them to where they are right now. They've been trying to get a lot of these illegal immigration regulations kicked out or invalidated, and they want a pathway to citizenship so more Hispanics can become citizens, largely because they think it's beneficial to them, because they think Latinos are going to be the future of their party, or at least give them an edge. Well, what's been happening in the past election, in the 2020 election, Republicans increased their vote share among Hispanics, and this year they're set to increase it even more, and potentially win the midterms, using in part a big advantage among Hispanics, to the point where I think Democrats are starting to reconsider their previous positions on immigration. If this continues, they're going to start to wonder, well, if these people are coming in, are they going to be sympathetic to us, or are they going to become like the other Hispanic voters that have been here? Some of them are multi-generational, of course, but are they going to become like the other Hispanic voters that have crossed over to the Republicans? Are we going to lose Hispanic voters that have been here for many years because they've decided that this is wrong and we're going to move over to the Republicans? So the same holds for a popular vote. They want the popular vote to be the determinant of the presidency and for other offices, and I think they should be careful what they wish for, because once you have people getting off the sidelines and saying, okay, so now I have a voice too, they don't always vote in your direction. The next topic is the economy. Yesterday, a 3/4 of a basis point hike of the interest rates, meaning that I think the base interest rate is like 4.75. So this means that the Fed has not yet finished its big project of trying to rein in inflation by hiking interest rates, and they're going to potentially do this again next month in December. Now, what investors have been trying to get the Fed to do, what they've been hoping it does at least, is to lay off on the interest rate hikes and actually go back to lowering them, because otherwise the economy can't really grow. With higher interest rates, a lot of people are not taking out loans. And that includes mortgages, that includes people not taking out business loans, because they're not willing to accept these high interest loans and then have to budget that in with whatever they're doing, right? So there have been comments that if you had bought a home in 2020 when interest rates were super low and you were paying something like $3,500 a month for your mortgage on this home, and you bought the same home today you would be paying something like $6,500. So people, there's real world consequences for these economic policies. It's not 100% Biden's fault because he doesn't determine Fed policy. And I've never wanted to be that guy who blames the president, whether it's Biden or Trump, for any problem exclusively, but especially not for economic troubles. But he does bear some responsibility. So do all the other presidents, and so do all the other sessions of Congress that have been since World War II, even possibly before that. Big spending and big money printing, that leads to inflation. And what we're going to be seeing is a lot more economic hardship. And we're going to have bubbles pop. We're going to have another subprime bubble pop for housing. And there could be another one for auto loans. And, it's hard to really quantify how bad this new economic downturn is going to be. Social Security is going belly up. There's a big pension, state-backed pension crisis that's going to happen for public employees because many of them are not fully funded. They're not guaranteed. So people have to really, I believe, dig down. Forget all these other controversies. Right? I started out with the Kanye and Kyrie controversy, and I did that because otherwise I would have forgotten or I wouldn't have left enough time. But the truth is, it shouldn't really consume any of our time because whereas up until now, people have been complaining about hate speech and problems like that there's no real solution to them because the problem is largely in people's mind. This is going to be a real problem. People are not going to be able to put food on their table and gas in their tank. And in many cases, people are going to be losing their homes, unfortunately, even losing their shirts. And people should be planning for that, buying provisions, whether it's non-perishable items for their pantry, or investing in things that could be useful in a new economy where the currency isn't really worth much. So, there's vice items. My wife actually says to me, that would be a good investment. Things that are you can basically barter away, like liquors and cigarettes and things like that. So, and then there's also the precious metal market, which I am deeply, deeply monitoring all the time. You have a real quandary there where the precious metal prices don't really seem to be going up on the futures market, but yet if you go try to buy physical gold or physical silver, oftentimes the bullion dealers don't even have them because people have bought so much of it. I have a problem. Every month I try to buy some in order to stay a little bit ahead, and you just can't find it. So I think people have to really wonder how they're going to survive this, because it might actually be too late to prepare for some of the hardship that's happening. But if you can pick up a copy of Bankruptcy of Our Country by Jerry Robinson, another book I recommend, I just read that one, is Peter Schiff, The Real Crash. And those will actually give you some practical tips on how to weather the storm. There's other ones out there, I just haven't really read all of them. Nowadays you're not going to be laughing at preppers. You're actually going to be begging them for help. And so that's what I have to say about the economy. Now on to rosier news. Just kidding. What happened in the past week is that the sands have shifted significantly. The winds have shifted, and there's now predictions that the red wave is going to be really, really, it's going to break basically the system, the Democratic lock on the system right now in D.C. and in other states, right? So not just at the federal level, but at the state level. Potentially the Oregon gubernatorial race is going to go to the Republican candidate. That's been in the mix the past couple of weeks because the Democrats just don't have any support behind them. And in fact, they're trying to fend off an independent candidate too. You also have New Mexico potentially they could elect a Republican governor, Steve Ronchetti, and former governor and former Republican candidate Gary Johnson, who for years he's been one of these people who says, well, the Republican Party isn't free enough for me. I'm going to be a libertarian. And many people voted for him in 2016, thinking that they didn't want to hold their nose for Donald Trump. Well, it looks now like Gary Johnson is going to be holding his nose and voting for the Republican. And I've also heard that Ralph Nader is telling people to vote for Democrats. So there's been a realignment where people on the right, like libertarians, are increasingly telling people to vote for the Republican, and people on the far left are increasingly trying to tell people to vote for the Democrat, except for people like Tulsi Gabbard who have crossed over, or vice versa. You also have Liz Cheney. So there is a big political realignment. But you also have, by the way, in Arizona, the third-party libertarian candidate has dropped out of their Senate race and endorsed Blake Masters. In my opinion, he should have done that weeks before, because now there's a lot of ballots that are effectively spoiled because morons might have voted for the guy during early voting. Anyway, so there's a lot of competitive races out there. Now, the Blake Masters race, I think that he's going to pull it out in the end. It would have probably happened even without the help of that guy. But it would have been very, very close. I think it's going to happen. I think Blake Masters is going to win. I think Kari Lake is going to win in Arizona. It's only a matter of the election being free and fair, and that's not a given. So I always leave open the possibility that there could be unlawful interference in the election from the authorities just not obeying their own rules. And this is something that I don't say it very often, but I am going to say it now. The government that we have in power right now in Washington, I believe, is not lawful and it's not legitimate. And it's not because I'm an election denier. It's because I recognize that the conduct of the election was not done according to the law. And this is something that has come up in recent days. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court effectively ruled this past week that undated mail-in ballots cannot be counted. It's unconstitutional to count them. And that would be one more blow. And this was by unanimous vote of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which leans Democrat. Okay, so don't think of this as some sort of partisan ruling by a Republican court, like some have said about Wisconsin. This is a Democrat-aligned court. And they've said that mail-in balloting with undated ballots is unconstitutional. So you might say, well, that's not enough votes to actually swing the election. The point is that the state of Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth, whatever they call themselves, didn't obey its own laws when it came to counting the ballots in the last election. The same should have held true, by the way, also for late balloting, period. And think about how many ballots would have been thrown out if the law actually would have been followed. And who are those people that submitted all those ballots? The truth is that it should just be election day, or sending in an absentee ballot if you really can't find a way to get to the vote. I used to live in Israel. You used to have to just show up on the day, put in your ballot, and leave. And that was how you voted. And all this crap where you say, oh, we need to expand access, people can't get to the ballot. It's bull crap. Over there was 80% plus participation in some of the elections that I took a part in. And the idea that this is that we need more mail-in balloting and we need to expand access is nonsense. People often don't vote because they don't care. And the way to get them to vote is to tell them to vote about things that they care about. And if they don't care about the things that you're talking about, then your message sucks and you're an asshole. And that's the real problem with the Democrat message on voting and on voter integrity. Now, the other races, I don't have a lot of time left because, I'm about to, let me see here. I think I have about 7 minutes left. So the other races I want to talk about, Pennsylvania is increasingly swinging in the direction of Mehmet Oz. If Pennsylvania is won by Dr. Oz. It looks like Wisconsin is going to be won by Ron Johnson, the incumbent. It looks like J.D. Vance is going to win in Ohio. A lot of these polls that are saying that it's close, I don't actually believe them anyway. J.D. Vance is ahead, but a lot of the polls are saying that it's within a couple points. I don't believe it. I actually believe that when election day comes in Ohio, you're going to see something like a 7-point margin, maybe even a 9-point margin, right? RCP actually does analysis where they show how off the polls have been in past elections, and they correct for that error. They said he would be ahead 9 points on election day. And then, of course, the other election that they're trying to defend, let me think. So there was Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and then they have to pick up Georgia in order to win. And then they would also have to pick up Nevada. So that would put them at 52. If they win Arizona, that's 53. And some are even giving them potential to win in New Hampshire. So there's a potential for 54 seats for Republicans. Other people are throwing in Colorado and Washington. Who knows about that? That would have to take significant error in the polls in those states, which, it could happen. But the Democrats are looking at a massive bloodbath. There are House races in Connecticut and in Rhode Island that at the moment look like they could swing Republican. So the Republicans could pick up seats in New England, and also are likely to pick up seats in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, seats that haven't really been Republican either ever or in many, many years. So the Democratic Party and the media are blowing up, and they're blowing their stack about it. I saw a clip with Mehdi Hassan of MSNBC, this idiot, talking to the White House chief of staff, and he's touting all of these different quote-unquote accomplishments, like the Inflation Reduction Act and the American Rescue Plan, and all these other programs that were, or at least acts of Congress that were passed under Biden that were supposed to solve the economy. And yet people are saying that the number one worry that they have is the economy. So what was actually solved? Passing a piece of legislation is not solving the issue. That's what Democrats don't understand. That's one of the reasons that I think we're stuck in this morass, that they still have a lot of people that will vote Democrat, even though they know that the solutions that Democrats have put in place have been failures. Obamacare, which is the reason that I actually started writing a lot more about politics. The other reason was the Rolling Stone false accusation story, the rape on campus story. But I also started to write a lot about Obama back in 2015, Obamacare. Obamacare has been a tremendous failure. Healthcare costs have gone up a lot since Obamacare was passed. In fact, I think they've gone up by thousands of dollars on average for each American. And I don't have to give a specific number, because even if it's gone up a little, the point of the bill was to make them go down. And that's the real issue, that once the program has failed, what Democrats will usually say is that the problem isn't as bad as people are saying, and that people just need to adjust their attitude and think about it in a different way, which is doublespeak for I failed, but it's really your fault. That's the mentality that Democrats and people on the left have, that they have the great program, they have the great idea, and this design for how to make society better. It only involves you giving more of your money and losing some of your freedom for the common good, and everything will be better. Except once it doesn't get better, it's not their fault because they came up with the plan. It's your fault because you screwed up the execution. That's the way they think about their philosophy towards America. That it's not that their ideas were bad. It's that society didn't put it into practice the way it was designed. And that's one of the reasons that I've always gravitated, in the past 15, 20 years, I've gravitated further and further to the free market viewpoint, the Milton Friedman and obviously the Ron Paul mentality. Now I listen to Peter Schiff as well. So I'm hoping that with time, more people come to that point of view, but it's hard to actually rely on that happening because of what we've seen in Brazil, for example. In Brazil, people saw what happened when big state and big welfare people had the reins of government, had the reins of their oil company. They plundered it. They used it for their own purposes, and look what happened. It was a tremendous recession in Brazil during the mid-2010s, and that was when most of the rest of the world wasn't in a recession. So I don't know what's going to happen in the future. All I know is that people should just try to prepare for the worst, because it is going to get pretty ugly out there. In fact, I'm actually driving through a massive thick layer of fog. So I will talk to you guys later. Please like, share, and subscribe. Remember to click on the link in the description to my link tree, and you can find me on all the relevant social media, whether it is Gap, Subscribestar, not my SoundCloud, what is it? Substack, and you can also find me on BitChute, Odyssey, and YouTube, obviously, and also on Rumble. That's the one I was forgetting. So have a great day, and I'll talk to you guys later.